bit of a long introduction because I dropped my microphone. Just going to be honest. That's why. Also, before I start today, I have to just show you, I don't know whether you'll be able to see this. You seen that? That's my Gary mug. I'm putting it on there. You might not be able to see it, guys. It's like if I put it next to my face. Gary mug. It's not my merchandise or anything. It's just a promise that when I do series with people, this is Gary, who was a producer on a couple of series that I worked on. And also the reason that I made Get Out to the States, actually, because it was a series that we did in the States as well. And he sends you him in some kind of murderous position at the end of it. So I thought, well, I've not advertised it, so I'm going to put it on. He's not selling them, but I thought I can't accept a gift and not do that. It's like when Lucy Liu sent me the Kenny Coult one and gave me the idea for my own merchandise. How are we all doing? If there are parents with GCSE and A-level results kids this week, you'll be like me. Like, what happened to the past 2 years of education? And oh my God, my kids are getting their GCSE and A-level results this week. So that's fun. I'm really excited. I can't wait. I'm imagining it's going to be a joyful experience. Literally given up the idea. Am I the only parent here who feels like that? Just like, I love you as much as I did before, as I will afterwards. Life's too short. All the old platitudes have rolled out today. All of them. Just like, it'll be fine. It's not your plan A anyway, all that stuff. I miss platitude today. So just acknowledging if any of you are listening and you've got kids in the same situation as mine and you're dealing with children and young people who are struggling, just know it's been a really crap few years for kids, hasn't it? It's got this big thing at the moment where I'm like, kids have suffered greatly. And it's the culmination for me because usually this coming time is where I'm like building up, lots of young people are struggling. Usually I go on this morning to talk about it and so on and so forth. But I feel like they've just got lost somewhere. And even the exam build-up and all of those things, it just got lost, hasn't it? Like a major, major issue for young people who've been through really unequal experience societally. I mean, kids are born in the wrong postcode to the wrong parents, aren't they? First of all, before we even start going further. None of you lovely elves, I know, but you've been people who've been born in the wrong postcode to the wrong parents, and I know a lot of you have. But to some degree, like all those kids who already had an unequal footing, they've just been totally abandoned, haven't they, in the last few years? Even my own kids, with respect to the school that my son goes to, it's great because he didn't go back to school because of all the things that were triggering. But the point is, when I look at that and I'm like, we've got lost somewhere, haven't we, with young people? Just been looking at all the stats on mental health in young people, and I think we can all agree that we've got to bring them back into the position, haven't we? Where I was writing an article today and it was all about like kind of eco-anxiety, because that's the new thing, isn't it? Like eco-anxiety, everyone's scared about global warming. I'm too busy to be scared about global warming, but I appreciate that young people are being brought up in this kind of climate of fear around it. And I was kind of thinking, wow, just kids aren't half being burdened, are they? Just before I start tonight's live, I just wanted to express that. Because a lot of you are parents, aren't you? Or maybe you're young people. I know quite a few young people come on here. I'm like, what are we doing? We just got through one crisis and now it's like, let's go through another crisis. And you're like, can we just think about what we're putting on the shoulders and the burdens of young people? It's a time of hope, isn't it, for kids? Isn't that what it's meant to be? I look back and I remember how messed up most of us feel when we're teenagers and how complex things are. But the one thing that's just like running through is just this kind of tiny little thread all the time of hope, isn't it, of possibility. And I just feel like in the past couple of years, we've really stamped that out societally. I'm lecturing. I sound a bit like a lecturer there, don't I? Need some kind of board, pointy thing to just go around. Like, point 1, children feel like they have been abandoned. Point 2, hope is an important thread, and so on and so forth. All right, let's get going. Nice having questions coming in. As you all know, write them at the side if you want to, but you can privately inbox them on Insta and Facebook as well. There's probably other places as well, but I'm not very good at it, so I'm just saying that because Pete has to manage all of this stuff. Am I allowed to say the name of this person, or is it a confidential one?
He's on Facebook.
Okay. Hi, Robin. How you doing? Evening, Emma. I hope you're well. I have to fly a short flight on my own for the first time next, and I'm nervous and anxious. Do you have any tips? It's mostly the health anxiety telling me that something bad might happen and I'll be alone and I don't want to ruin the experience. Thank you as always. So first off, there's a bit of me that's going, are you actually flying the plane? You're probably not, but there's a bit of me that's like, are you on your own for a flight? But I'm going to just take it that you're a passenger, but you're doing it on your own for a short flight. First of all, nice one. I think booking the flight and moving past that feeling of fear to, I'm going to do it anyway, like the book says, feel the fear and do it anyway. That in itself is one of the biggest steps that you can take. So you've kind of psychologically prepped yourself to go ahead. Secondly, you've acknowledged that the health anxiety is something that can cause you a bit of distress, you know, fear of being up in the sky, fear of the things that can go wrong, ultimately being by yourself. They're all very real things when you have health anxiety, but you're bossing it because you're actually making the moves to go. So what can you do during the trip, which is the kind of thing, and I'm going to add to that a little bit because I think another thing that a lot of people have expressed to me, like, I haven't been on holiday and I'm going to be really honest with you, like, I'm probably going to be flying out to Portugal at the end of like August or beginning of September time. And there is an anxiety that I think I connect with on a level with a lot of people, which is all of the kind of changes and shifts and the systemic experience of going through the airport. You know, it happened after 9/11 when everything just shifted and changed, and it's kind of happening again. So I think it's completely normal to have that feeling of anticipation anxiety, which is, I don't know what it's going to be like anymore. So just acknowledge that. And then what kind of exercises can you do? And I would just do the same standard exercises that I do with anybody dealing with anxiety in a moment where you need to anchor yourself back into the present and feel in control. So I would like you to go out tomorrow and either get something like a stone that you find that's really nice to hold on to, or if you want to find something like a handkerchief or something that you can put some really nice essential oils. Like, I always say peppermint, but I have a clinical psychologist friend of mine and she's like, you don't have to recommend a smell. Like, maybe they're like lavender. She's so right, but I've just got this transfixed experience with peppermint or albus oil because they're really strong. So I always suggest when you're going to do an anchoring exercise, you either have something that you feel or something that triggers the senses, for example, smell, or of course sight. And then what you do is you do some deep relaxation whilst you're either holding the stone, the pebble, whatever it is. Some people actually use something that's sentimental to them. Don't take a knife, no matter how sentimental it is, because it will cause you problems at the airport. But, you know, something that's sentimental. But I like to do things that are very specific for grounding exercises. And then when you actually meditate, and you can do any meditation you want, breathing, the inhaling and exhaling, I want you to hold onto that pebble. I want you to smell the peppermint, because what you're going to do is you're going to create a psychological anchor, and then you're going to connect to grounding exercise. So the physical anchor is your grounding exercise, and the sensory anchor is your peppermint if you've got that as well. You could do both if you wanted, but the most important thing is the psychological connection with relaxation. So you're going to do that. Also, I've said diaphragmatic breathing, but you might want to do a little bit of an exercise on that by itself. That just helps to really regulate the adrenaline and cortisol, because that's how we feel when we're nervous. And I'm starting my crime tour in September, and I feel a sense of horror, dread and panic at the idea of walking onto the stage. And I know that they are primal experiences and instincts of what fear provokes. And I know that the only way that I'm going to get through that is to just go and do it, and to kind of reframe it as this is normal when you feel afraid of something, you want to run and hide, but actually the way that you get through that is to find that courage, because then you don't feel afraid of it anymore. So this is a big deal for you, Robin. Not only are you going to go ahead and do something that's made you scared, you're also going to do it by yourself, and you're also looking at a cogent kind of experience of what you can use to bring you through that. So diaphragmatic breathing as well. And then the final thing I say, whilst a lot of people really struggle to ask for help, believe me, flight attendants know more than anybody about people who struggle at times on planes. So if there is any issue with you at all, where you're like, oh, I just need somebody to remind me it's safe, have a word with the air hostesses or the air host too when you get on, and be like, this is really nervy for me, and ask them to just kind of help you calm down, because they're so used to it. I do all those things, but check in when you've come back. I hope you're going somewhere nice. But I hope it's not just like I'm just flying from Birmingham to London. I hope you're going somewhere that you're going to get a bit of a trip. Maybe that's just me and my bias, wanting to go somewhere. Okay, how can I manage anxiety without medication? I hate leaving the house. The hustle and bustle makes me so dizzy and I lose my footing a lot. So I'm not a doctor, but one of the things that sounds like it could be as well is a little bit of vertigo. I don't want to say it is, by the way. Definitely not qualified to make that decision. But the thing about that losing your footing, obviously we could say that when you're struggling with your anxiety, you might be over breathing. We all know what happens there. That makes us feel very doddery and it can make us actually collapse. It can do all those things. So of course, if you're over breathing and you're starting to hyperventilate, that will definitely make you doddery. But it could also be that, you know, when you're out, if there's something going on in your inner ear, like vertigo can be a real problem. And that can also make people really phobic of going outside. I'm not saying it is, I'm just saying if there's any possibility that you might want to get that checked out just on the off chance. I don't know how hard it is at the moment to get appointments with GPs. I've been to the hospital with my son for an outpatient's appointment today. It was fine, the hospital, but I also know it's been really hard to see our GP, so I don't know how easy it is. And I know that a lot of people are having to do it online, but it might be worth just checking in with them and having that conversation. However, it's brilliant that you've decided to make a choice about what your protocol is for your managing this situation, and you've chosen without anxiety at this moment in time. And I think that meditate rather than medicate is something that a lot of people choose, and that's fine. I also want to make sure that you don't feel guilty or ashamed for feeling at times that you need medication and you don't want to do it because you feel like you're giving in. I also want to make it clear that that's not something you'd be doing. So don't have any shame around needing a little bit of extra help, particularly when it's to do with that fear base that a lot of us have. Secondly, really it comes down to what I was saying before about those relaxation exercises, but also rehearsing. So rehearsing is powerful because you're not just about the grounding, you're not just about the breathing, you're going out a little bit and just a little bit. And that might be that you just agree that you're going to walk to the local Tesco Extra or the local petrol station, somewhere quieter, and you allow yourself to just kind of like rehearse and start getting yourself into a scenario where you feel more in control and more empowered in that way. Also, ask yourself the questions, like, when did this begin? What has become fearful for you in the world? It might be that there was a specific trigger. It might be that there's some trauma associated with something that's happened to you. It might not. Have grown, and so when you feel surrounded by people and there's a hustle and bustle, you don't feel as in control and you're kind of looking about what could happen. Again, that's why I kind of said, has there been any trauma in your life? Because sometimes we're on high alert, aren't we? If something bad happened, or if something not even horrifically bad happened, but like take for example when my son had his bike stolen from him, you know, and he was kind of moped jacked. It took him like 3 or 4 weeks where he could just like really tune off from thinking about all sides because the constant threat in his head was there. But if you've had something that's occurred that's been negative, those things can really build. The other thing that I always say is not everyone is built for the city, not everyone is built for the towns. Some people are built much more for a quieter pace of life. And I watch people often think that because they really can't stand hustle and bustle, there's something broken about them. And there's not. Some people are not built for that environment. I don't think humans are really a lot of the time, if I'm really honest. I think we're built for smaller communities and lots of love and caring and healing and all the things that go with that. But what I'm trying to get across is maybe explore the themes that are within your world about why hustle and bustle doesn't work for you. And is it something that you have to always face? Or is it something that you can transition? And again, I'm not saying you shouldn't confront and deal and challenge the emotions that are restrictive or limiting. Of course you should, we all have to do that. But sometimes it's not about the fact that there is something that needs changing or shifting. Sometimes it's a process of accepting and being very aware that, you know, that's not for me. So my brother, like if you said, should we go clubbing? He'd be like, I literally would rather be buried alive. And like he really would feel that way. It's just outside of his realms. He can't even deal with a noisy house or my dog's barking and kids being around. And, you know, he's a very like quiet, considered man. He's a wonderful human, but that's not his groove. So again, I want you to think about, am I trying to deal with the world around me that I don't need to always deal with? And am I pushing myself into a place that I just don't actually fit? That's another thing. But ask yourself the questions about trauma. Ask yourself the questions about what it represents when you're out there and why the outside world has become, I suppose to some degree, the enemy, and the inside world, the internal world has become that womb, that kind of safety, but it's actually really limiting you now. And like I said, rehearse. So do those exercises I was talking about, like the grounding. It's exactly the same for the anxiety in flight. There's also an exercise when you're out, which is a quick grounding exercise. A lot of you know it already because I've said it a million times. But it's 5, 4, 3, 2, 1 method. And that means that when you start getting that panicky feeling, apart from wanting to take in air through your nose and then breathe out slowly through your mouth, just to kind of get that anxiety level just shifted a little bit, start feeling in control of your breathing. Apart from doing that, you can do 5, 4, 3, 2, 1, which is where you say, I'm just going to bring myself back to the present. Look, 5 things that I can see, 4 things that I can hear, 3 things that I can smell, 2 things that I can touch, 1 thing that I can taste. And it's like bringing you back. If that's too complex for you, counting exercises. So it might be, I'm going to spot 3 red cars. I'm going to look at 2 trees. I'm going to do whatever it is that like brings you back to the present. Because when we're thinking in that way, firstly, we're not going to overbreathe because we're thinking about other things. We've shifted our focus. We've broken the cognition. And then the most important thing is that we're attending the present. And so we've got some control over it. But like I said, gradually build up. And I think it's great that you're trying to challenge it without medication. I think we are a massively over-medicated opinion. But just saying, a lot of us have got different opinions, and some people believe that medication is the best thing in the world. But the biggest problem is when people have I think about how things can be managed in different ways and how we should always try all those ways before we go to medication. I definitely do. I don't want anyone to ever have shame about needing it. Okay? So
Clicking on and off. I have to restart.
Okay.
Black and white. Just sit people.
Oh, apparently it's clicking on and off, so I've got to go, and he's going to restart it so that I can come back and not be black and white and off and on, whatever it is. I don't know quite what it is, so he'll come